In the world of Elden Ring, there are dozens of ways one could interpret the symbology of the world. Many people have taken an alchemical view of the lands between. Some see the array of colors as representative of larger concepts and archetypes. That said, when analyzing the universe found within Elden Ring, we often take a very macro, or large-scale perspective, meaning we are attempting to define the characters and their motivations through a lens that is congruent with our theories of the underlying metaphysics of the universe itself. Say, for example, our understanding of Marika's intentions are entirely dependent on fundamental assumptions about the world, such as whether or not the Greater Will is an outer god that represents a construct much like the Twin Bird, or whether it is something much greater, akin to a monotheistic true god. Today, though, I want to zoom our scope of perspective in a little bit, and instead focus on the psychology and thought processes of individual characters. For those of you who don't know, I am a psychology graduate student. I specifically study clinical and quantitative psychology, but as a side passion, I am a large fan of more conceptual psychological theories, such as those presented by Carl Jung. Now, if you are an Elden Ring lore fanatic, you have probably heard that name before. He was a famous psychiatrist who was known for having a lot of heavily impactful conceptual theories relating to psychology, such as the idea of the collective unconscious or the ego and the shadow. Today, I want to look at a character through the lens of the Jungian 12 archetypes. Jung proposed that these archetypes are universal, primordial symbols and images that derive from the collective unconscious, shared by all human beings regardless of culture or historical period. Jung believed that these archetypes manifest in dreams, art, myths, and religions, and thus we see them very often in video games. The 12 archetypes can be categorized into groups based on their core desires, as well as what motivates them, such as the lover being focused on intimacy but ultimately seeking connection with others. Each archetype represents different fundamental human motivations and embodies specific characteristics and behaviors. I think by analyzing some of the characters in Elden Ring through the lens of these archetypes, we can come to better conclusions on their fundamental priorities and why they set forth on the paths that they did. Keep in mind that there are far more than 12 archetypes, but these are the ones that tended to be the most present and representative of most humans. Let's start with a character that I think has a very clearly defined archetype.
Tarnished, are we? I wonder you should turn up here. I am Sellen, a sorcerer, quite plainly. Why are you here?
Sorceress and reviled witch Sellen is the embodiment of a search for knowledge, but not just for knowledge's sake, for power. It comes without much surprise then that her archetype is the magician. Now, I don't want anyone to think that Sellen is classified as the magician because she simply uses magic. That's not it at all. A brutish warrior or conniving thief could be the magician archetype all the same, for what defines an archetype are their core desires, motivations, fears, abilities, and weaknesses in life. No, instead, Sellen is the magician because her thirst for knowledge and power has led her beyond the means of where mortals were intended to go. Let's break down the magician archetype. The magician is an initiate of secret and hidden knowledge of all kinds. All knowledge that takes special training to acquire is the province of the magician's energy. Sorcery in the world of Elden Ring arises from intelligence and the ability to understand the complex mysteries of glintstone. The more a sorcerer is able to understand and unravel these mysteries, the more they can tap into the cosmos and bend them to their will, and thus are granted more power. The magician archetype is part of the ego quadrant, and this means that the root of their core desire is to ultimately leave some sort of mark on the world. The motto of the magician, then, is that I make things happen, and their core desire is to understand the fundamental laws of the universe, which hopefully then leads them to enact some sort of change upon the world through their understanding.
Our art draws upon the powers embedded in Glintstone. But what is the nature of such power? Glintstone is the amber of the cosmos. Golden amber contains the remnants of ancient life and houses its vitality, while Glintstone contains residual life, and thus the vitality of the stars. It should not be forgotten that Glintstone sorcery is the study of the stars and the life therein, a fact lost on most sorcerers these days.
Even after just a short meeting with Sellen and purchasing a sorcery or two, she goes out of her way to remind us that sorcery at its very heart is the study of the stars. Her entire goal is to make something happen, by pushing beyond the limitations that had been set before her. In Sellen's mind, the Academy was full of scholars who were too scared to do what needed to be done to develop an actual understanding of the cosmos.
My apprentice. If you recall, I was exiled from the Academy of Rea Lucaria. It was for attempting to restore the primeval current of Glintstone sorcery. The toothless pedantry peddled by the Carian royal family can rot for all I care. I want Glintstone sorceries that open our minds, unbound by terrestrial taboos, no matter what we give in return.
This is a large piece of what embodies the magician archetype, and what separates them from the sage. You see, both the sage and the magician fundamentally seek to understand the universe, but the sage seeks knowledge for its own sake. There is a joy in learning, studying, and conceptualizing. Their lofty dreams and ambitions typically blossom where knowledge begins. On the other hand, the magician's desires in life lead them to seek the end of knowledge, to have an answer for all things, to have a solution for every problem, to ultimately have power.
My apprentice, I presume nothing. Teacher and student are not bound to tread the same path. But hear me out, my apprentice. I need your help to restore the primeval current of Glintstone sorcery. Perhaps this is a journey we could take together.
The goal of the magician is to make dreams come true, and in Sellen's case, her dream is to master and innovate Glintstone sorcery. The strategy of the magician for achieving their goal is to develop a vision and to put forth every effort possible in order to bring their vision to reality. What this can often lead to for the magician is trouble with authority, tradition, and limitations. They see a clear path forward, they just believe that the world or people and their systems are anchoring them down and preventing them from reaching their goals and enacting their strategies to achieve their vision. In fact, once we start to help Sellen on her journey, one of her primary goals is to get back to the Academy which has exiled her so she can essentially take over, to exert her power through understanding, so that she can change the rules and allow for a deeper study of the cosmos.
My apprentice. Just how long has it been? Thank you. You've helped me fill a new body once again, and it's truly a gem. Young and full of vigor, a snug fit for my primal glintstone. Better still, I've shed those awful shackles. Finally, I can return to the Academy to expel the Carian royal family and restore the primeval current.
The problem the magician faces, though, is that oftentimes limitations are set in place for a reason. Sure, some people can drive over the speed limit and not get into accidents, but speed limits play a very important role in society for most people by keeping them at an appropriate speed for the area they are in. The magician, in their pursuit of knowledge, will always be one of the first to discard preconceived limitations, so that they might find what others were too fearful to search for.
Do you see this? The Queen of Caria is no more. With the bodies of Masters Azure and Lusat returned, the Academy can hone the primeval current, so that we, fallen children of the stars, shall beam with brilliance once again.
The ultimate weakness of the magician, then, is hubris. Much like Icarus, their pursuit of the heavens can lead them too close to the sun. This is even more tragic once we realize the core fear of the magician: unintended, negative consequences.
My friend, I
Sellen's tragic end, transforming into a graven mass of sorcerers, represents the catastrophic outcome of pushing boundaries too far and losing control over the forces she sought to master. This transformation is a literal manifestation of the magician's fear of unintended negative consequences. Sellen's fate is one that is not necessarily undeserved. While we don't know the exact origins of the schools of Graven Mages, many believe that Sellen is the one who took other sorcerers and combined them into these monstrosities. After all, to her, the act of collecting sorcerers to fashion them into the seeds of the stars is but another path of scientific inquiry. This aligns well with the second major weakness of the magician archetype, that they can become manipulative in the pursuit of their goals. People become pawns, and the magician sees themselves as the player. Even kings and queens, quite literally in Sellen's case, are nothing more than chess pieces to be moved and played as needed. Her loss of humanity in this scenario, then, isn't just literal. It is a representation of her abandonment of human morality and decency by becoming an unrecognizable monster who would not only strive beyond the limits of her own safety, but would be willing to sacrifice others for her own gain. Ultimately, Sellen's tragic end is a vivid illustration of the magician archetype's potential dark side. Her story emphasizes the archetype's themes of transformation, quest for knowledge, and the potential for both great achievement and catastrophic failure. Her demise serves as a powerful narrative on the dangers of hubris, manipulation, and detachment from reality. I hope you have enjoyed this look at Sellen the Witch through the lens of Jungian archetypes. If you liked this, please let me know, and I would be happy to do more of these for different characters. Thanks for watching.
We must choose our masters wisely.